Well, I think first and foremost is the technology. Technology and change is going to happen whether we participate in it or not. So I made the choice. I want to be part of that change. I don't want to be left behind and essentially wonder later on, sayang. Sana nung nabalitaan ko to, kahit konti, sinubukan ko.
Our guest speaker, for your information, I'm sure nakita niyo sa description, but to formally invite him, he's a seasoned management executive in finance with over 18 years of experience working with international institutions throughout Asia in a broad range of functions such as credit analyst, corporate finance, investment banking, corporate planning, and investor relations. So without further ado, Fermin Barrenechea III.
Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Depending on where you're watching from.
Alright, maraming salamat, Fermin. Sige. So, James, I'll start the session by asking Fermin first this question. Because a lot of people, of course, sabi ko kanina sa show, iba-iba yung mga players sa industry. Tama, meron mga traders, meron dyan tinatawag ng mga position traders, meron investors, kumbaga iba-iba ng players. Alright? Pero, now, the first question is, why did you get into cryptocurrency investing? Okay, you came from finance industry, pero bakit cryptocurrency investing?
Well, since you correctly pointed out, I come from the finance background. So, what is one of the common things we all have in terms of finance? Magkano ba nakukuha ninyo pag ilagay niyo yung pera ninyo sa bangko? Yayaman ba kayo dyan? I think the common thread there is we do know na ang baba ng binibigay na interest ng bangko, di ba? So, given my background there, when I started getting exposed to cryptocurrency, and I could see remember I entered cryptocurrency in 2017, so kumbaga, I wasn't one of the early adopters. But looking at the movements of cryptocurrency, particularly Bitcoin, and to a lesser extent Ethereum, and looking at the price movements throughout that period of time, sabi ko, mukhang may potential to. And I believe that if it gains traction, no? Kasi syempre, at that point in time, 2017, so you're looking at something which is still, even by today's standards, fairly new, di ba? We still cannot say na we've already reached the level of mass adoption. So, I looked at it as if para tong internet nung nag-umpisa, that there was a big segment that was saying hindi to magki-click, it's just going to be a fad and it's going to fail. But I figured could be, pero what if the reverse happens? What if there is actually some potential in this and it can grow further? So I started studying the space further. And I guess going back to one of the comments that Coach Jonathan made earlier, I am what you call a positional trader. When I look at cryptos, I will typically be in a crypto for minimum a year and a half, if not longer. Unless, let's say, the price movement has been so fantastic na pwedeng mag-exit na ako. But generally, I don't mind waiting kahit na 2 years or more until it gets to a price level na comfortable ako to start taking profits. So yun. That's how I entered crypto. It was a natural extension having come from the finance background.
A follow-up question to that would be, paano ka na-introduce sa cryptocurrency in the first place? Like, did you do your self-study? Or was it introduced to you by a mentor, a person, or you've read it somewhere?
Right. That's a very good question, James. My first entry into cryptocurrency was through cloud mining. And the company that I entered the cloud mining eventually closed. But the good thing there is, gaya nga ng lagi natin sinasabi, I don't look at it as a loss. I look at it as tuition. I learned. And that was one of my first exposures into Bitcoin in particular. And then after that cloud mining, I also started looking at trading, yung automated trading. So then that also widened my exposure na from Bitcoin. Then I started looking at the others, Binance, Ethereum. But it started with cloud mining.
Now, for me, moving forward, this is something that I'm curious about because you came from a traditional finance, right? Yung of course, yung traditional financial infrastructure. Then eventually, pumasok ka na sa crypto, which is a decentralized finance. Now, based from your experience, okay, of course, with 18 years of experience sa traditional finance, ano yung nakita mong difference of traditional finance versus etong decentralized finance? And ano yung nakita mo dito na masasabi natin bakit ka nagtuloy-tuloy? Ba't ka from 2017 na pumasok ka, or you're still here? Ano ba yung nakita mo dito that will benefit you, and of course, at the same time na masasabi mo na this is good, something good na pwedeng pasukin?
That's a good question, Coach. Well, I think first and foremost is the technology. I think we've discussed this a number of times. Now, technology and change is going to happen whether we participate in it or not. So I made the choice. I want to be part of that change. I don't want to be left behind and essentially wonder later on, sayang. Sana nung nabalitaan ko to, kahit konti, sinubukan ko. So, pinasukan ko. Now, the other thing is, in finance nga, given that my background is in finance, and nakita nga natin na you already see what sort of returns you can get from banking. When you start looking at the counterparts in decentralized finance, and you see what sort of yields you can earn, plus the models that they're doing, then that gave me additional comfort na this is really going to be something that we hear this term often, disruptive. It's really going to change a lot in terms of how industries operate going forward. And this is blockchain, no? And it's not just finance. You see it happening in insurance. You see it happening in logistics. You see it happening in healthcare. I mean, cryptocurrency is essentially only a small component of blockchain technology. It just so happens that it is probably the one that is the most visible and the most high profile at this point in time. But clearly, it's a small part of a bigger development, which is blockchain, and how this age of technological change is upon us. As they like to say, diba, the genie is out of the bottle. Hindi mo naman ibabalik yan. So it's a question of you decide, do you want to be part of that? Or do you stick to the old ways and take a chance? Even in banking, you see that, right? There are banks that have embraced it. There are banks that are still hesitant. Time will tell, pero I'm cautiously optimistic that the banks that have decided to embrace it are going to show leaps and bounds in terms of improvement over those that didn't.